everybody, and welcome inside the Moore All Television Studios on the campus of Central Michigan University. My name is Regan Cleves, and on this episode of Inside Chippewa Hockey, we'll take a deep dive into the men's Division III and women's Division II Chippewa club hockey teams. Well, turning first to look at the women's Division II team, I'd like to welcome on both Matt Ryder, broadcaster for CCHN, and Zoie Sawdy, one of the players. Welcome, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, it's good to have you guys on. Well, the second semester didn't really start too well for you guys. You guys lost to the Division I Penn State team on the opening weekend of the semester, and then you got swept by Sault College. That first game was really tough. How did you guys manage to stay in it with one of the best teams in the country?
We knew at the beginning that they were going to be the toughest team that we were going to face, and if we knew that if we played how we did in Penn State, we would give them a run for their money because they're 20-0, and we knew that they were going to be the team we needed to beat. And we went in strong-headed, put in full effort, and see where we ended up.
Yeah, indeed. You guys lost to them 2-1 in overtime in that first game. And then the second game, things kind of fell apart. It was an 0-4 loss. Matt, what was really the difference in that game compared to game one?
Well, that first game, they played their hearts out and, took them down to the wire. And, just going into that overtime loss, it was a pretty quick turnaround. So coming into that one, I think, I don't know too much about it, but I think they were just trying to put their best foot forward, and I think they didn't give up any goals in the third period. So I think it just shows the team that they can hang with one of the best teams in the conference. Yeah,
and Zoe, for you guys hanging with that one of those best teams in the country, what does that do to your mentality going forward in the season?
It kept us definitely held high. We knew that if we make it to nationals, that we could stand a chance because of the way we played against them, because more or less we'll see them in playoffs if we make that, and possibly again in nationals.
And coming out of that Sioux series, you guys had lost 3 straight, and you guys came into a series against a team that was really unproven in women's Division II. Lawrence Tech, this is their first year in the league, and your first game, you guys played well, but you guys ended up losing 3-5. But talk to me about what happened in that first game, Zoe.
We could not understand the cherry picker. For us, it was like mini mites hockey, and we could not figure it out because at the very beginning, we didn't know how to play it. We didn't know if to have both D out, both D in, one stay out, and ultimately it costed us the first period. Yeah,
and it certainly is, especially playing at the collegiate level. You don't often see a cherry picker like that. That's usually, like you said, low-level youth hockey, but it's certainly something that you guys had to overcome, and you couldn't really overcome it, but Leah Palmer had a really, really good game.
Yes, Leah Palmer had an amazing game. She had 10-plus shots in that game, and one of them went in. But in that game, the Chippewas went down 2-0, and same as the second game as well. So the cherry picker was a big factor in that, and but once they were able to find their footing and play defense on the cherry picker, it was kind of too late in the first game. It was 4-3 with like 30 seconds left, and then they had an empty netter. So, but going in the second game, 2-0 again, and Abraham had the start in that game, and we started to play Chippewa hockey, played our defense, and offensively we were clicking on all ends. Nixon had 4 goals, her first hat trick of the year, I guess, at least 3 goals. That line with Del Rey and Sawdy and Nixon, they're clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, and talking about that second game, Zoe, that game snapped a 4-game losing streak for you guys, going back to the game against the Division I Penn State team. What changed coming out of game 1? What did you guys have to do going into Farmington Hills Ice Arena, playing a team that had just beaten you the night before?
So Coach changed all the lines. He mixed and matched until we had our lines for the second game, because going 4-3 against a 7-player team wasn't ideal. And so we changed that up. We changed the way we positioned ourselves against them, and knowing that they were going to have a person in the neutral zone, we had to be cautious of the icing calls, because all they had was the player on the ice, and we would be gassed, and they would win the icing. It would cost us our icing and having it back in their own zone.
Yeah, and talking about Kylie Del Rey's success, her former line mate, Gabriella Nixon, which you mentioned, Zoe, the coach split up the lines, and he put Nixon with Caitlin Williams and Brooke Hubert in the second game, and that really, really helped your offense. Nixon had 4 goals in that game, helped out mainly by Williams and Hubert. How do you think that line came together?
I don't know. It's like they had chemistry the first time they stepped on the ice. Like Caitlin and Brooke have chemistry as it is. They pass back and forth, and just adding Gabby, they all have speed, they all have skill, and it ultimately ended in our favor.
Yeah, it really did. And now taking a look at the standings in the CCWHA Division 2, you guys sit second in the division at 11-3 with 22 points, 6 points behind Sioux, who's got 14 wins. They have absolutely killed it this entire season. They're undefeated in the ACHA, and they sit number 1 in the region. But looking below you, you guys have Adrian and Michigan State, 2 teams you have already played, 9-3, 8-4. How do you see this top half of the standings playing out as we go along?
I think it's going to stay the same. Sioux is definitely an amazing team from Canada, and they've been just beating teams constantly at a high level. And for us to just go head-to-head with them in overtime in the first game to notch a point, and in the second game within 4, it just shows what kind of team we are compared to the teams that they've beaten this year. So, and with Adrian, they're also a tough team too. We got a win out of them, and but they're playing really well. They're gonna stay at that number 3 spot, and I think we'll stay at the number 2 spot. We'll play Miami coming in the next couple weeks here to end the season, and that should boost our confidence and get us rolling for the playoffs.
Zoe, before we head out, any thoughts on your upcoming matchup against the number 5 team in the division, Miami, who sits at 5-5?
We just got to play the same way we played against Penn State and Sioux. We forget about this past weekend, and we come in hard.
Well, Zoe, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. Good luck with the rest of the season. Stay tuned after the break. We'll be joined by play-by-play broadcaster Devin and Sarah for the men's Division 3 team. You're watching Inside Chippewa Hockey.
Touchdown! Oh, did you see that? Whoa, we scored? Yeah, we scored. We're going to the playoffs. I can't believe I missed that. Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone. What? I should take your phone away. No. I'll call for a ride. Hey, why does my face look like that?
I'm playing with these new face filters.
Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine. I'm gonna need that back. No. Kevin!
Your girls have been with you through every moment of your life. And they're still with you right now. But how well do you know them?
You don't know my name.
Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
Welcome back to Inside Chippewa Hockey. I'm your host, Regan Cleves, and in this segment, we'll take a look at the men's Division III team. For that, I'd like to welcome in my broadcast partner, Devin. Devin, it's good to have you on.
Hey, Reagan, great to be back with you, my friend. It's always exciting to talk Chippewa hockey, especially right now at an important time in the season.
Yeah, Devin, you talk about an important time for the Chippewas, and the start of this semester seemed to look like it was going on the right foot. They had big wins against number 14 Nebraska and Missouri State, who was sitting at number 2. That made it 3 straight wins against ranked opponents for the Chippewas, and then it seemed to kind of go downhill. But I want to talk about the impact of those games that should be coming up in the new rankings soon.
Yeah, certainly. You're talking about the Miami showcase where the Chips went 2-0-1 on the weekend. They beat the number 14 team, Nebraska. Then the number 2, Missouri State Ice Bears, massive upset. And then they tied IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. That was the key moment that has kind of been where we are right now. The Chippewas have dropped their last 2, notably getting swept against Lawrence Tech. And that was important because in that game, Reagan, they didn't score a single goal. It was a 0-0 tie, ended in a 1-0 shootout win for them. But the thing is, they put 60-plus shots on IUP goaltender John Holman and could not beat him back in the back iron. And that's just the key to it, is that game mentally, for some reason, has seemed to eclipse CMU. Their only production has come from that top line, it seems, with Bottles, Porzondik, and Flynn. Porzondik and Bottles have accounted for the last 3 of the 4 goals against Lawrence Tech, and you see how much momentum they rode. And you thought everything was great after the wins against Grand Valley, Nebraska, and Missouri State, and then all of a sudden things have cooled down.
Yeah, you kind of jumped the gun on my next point about, because I want to talk about that line of Andrew Porzondik, Nathan Bottles, and Hayden Flynn. They have a combined 8 goals, 9 assists, 16 points in the last 5 games, and Andrew Porzondik has been on a tear. And I hesitate to say he's been on a tear because he's been on a tear all year. He had his 3rd hat trick of the season and 3rd 5-point game of the year against Missouri State. How do you think that line is coming together so well?
Well, that line has benefited from what you just mentioned, Andrew Porzondik's success. Look, folks, he is the real deal, the leading scorer on the Chippewa team. He really has been since Isaac Gibbs went down with that injury against Saginaw Valley State back in November. He's back now, but he's cooled off himself as of late, and he's promoting that line, making everyone around him better. Nathan Bottles' production is up. Hayden Flynn, who was a notable 4th liner for pretty much his entire career as a Chippewa, now finds himself in a top-line role, being kind of the assist man to Bottles, getting the puck to them, feeding them down low, and it's resulted in success. 11 of the last 15 Chippewa goals have come from this top line. It's really the only thing that's working for them right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned Hayden Flynn. I want to talk a little bit more about him because that top line for CMU tended to be more skill-based, and for most teams, it is a very skill-based top line, but I think Coach Brennan Martin, who came in to replace Tyler Cataline at the end of the first semester, I really think him adding Hayden Flynn to that top line has brought a sense of physicality and true Chippewa hockey.
Well, certainly, and they've needed it. Look, they've had some notable injuries in the last couple of weeks. Jay Nadeau went down, Keelan Baker went down, and before that, Ben Rydchuk has been out for the foreseeable future. So they have been lacking what you just mentioned, that physicality department. Head coach Brendan Martin talks all the time about he wants his teams to bring the physicality to the opposition. And you're absolutely right. Hayden Flynn brings that mentality. He's a chirper on the ice. He's going to give you the business no matter who you are, if you're the top goal scorer or the 4th line grinder, because he knows what it's like to be that. So that's the thing. He's got to set the tone in the physicality department. Even if he doesn't show up on the score sheet with assists or goals or points, he's going to win the moral battles, and that's winning those those battles against the boards, completely putting guys out of the game and really frustrating the opposition.
Yeah, and Hayden Flynn getting in a Donnybrook in that second Lawrence Tech game at home. The Don father, I'm not sorry for the pun, folks. And we talk about that top line and that production, but I also want to take a look at the returners. We had some Chippewas who weren't in the lineup to start the year, most notably Owen Campbell and Isaac Gibbs out with the injury, as well as Kyle Chapman. And I think they haven't really touched the score sheet as much as you would like them to in the time since their return, but I do really think that they've added some things off the score sheet.
Yeah, and notably Owen Campbell is basically one of their best stick handlers. This guy is dynamic. He's able to move the puck up the ice so efficiently. Even when he's on a 1-on-3, he looks like he's just gliding out there, able to get around defenders with ease and really make his way to the net, and that's really been his success since we've seen him as a Chippewa. He's so dynamic in his ability, his stick handling. He does everything you want as a goal scorer, and I think you kind of haven't seen that because he's had limited time. Again, missed the entire first semester, along with Kyle Chapman, who you just mentioned, who he's been phenomenal with the blue line coming back. I think he's really provided some solidified back check. He's brought security. He's brought up the young guys around him, notably Braden Keel, made him a little bit better. And so when you talk about guys that are returning, it's an entirely different Chippewa team, just from the way they play, their system, everything that you want them to work around. That includes not just the 5-on-5, but the power play, able to get deep into the zone and get to the net. Those two have been providing a lot. And as far as Isaac Gibbs goes, I think he, at the beginning of the year, had a lot of success, but you've seen him cool off, and you wonder almost if that injury had an effect on him when he went down against Saginaw Valley.
Oh, it certainly did. He was on a hot streak to start before that game, and coming into that Saginaw Valley game, and he was the leading scorer for CMU, and since his return at the start of the semester, he has kind of cooled off, but he still is able to make plays, and he's showing why he's such a good goal scorer. Devin, moving on, I want to talk about the last line of defense for Central Michigan, the goaltending. And coming in to the end of that first semester, we kind of thought it had been settled. Lauren Jones had made a bulk of the starts. He had played very well, especially in those two Grand Valley games where he kept the Chippewas in it and even earned a win in the second game. But since the break, he has allowed 6 goals in 3 straight appearances, whereas Elijah Jones, who has played very well in the chances that he's gotten, he has had 2 shutouts in his last 2 starts, and he also came in relief in that Lawrence Tech game. What are your thoughts on this goaltending situation?
I think it's one that we haven't seen really all year. You know, we talked in the early portion of the year who would be that starter, and in our minds it was going to be Lauren Jones for the foreseeable future. You know, very steady, had a time playing last year, had even a shutout, as you mentioned, against U of M Flint, and he was doing very well in that. And yeah, he had a couple slip-ups against Notre Dame, that 11-4 loss, Saginaw, and then, you know, we saw time for Elijah Jones, and then he came in and played great. He's got 3 shutouts this year against Adrian, Lake Superior State, and then most notably, he played excellent in the Notre Dame series. And so I think right now you're in a very difficult spot if you're Brendan Martin trying to find that head guy, because you want to trust that veteran presence in Lauren Jones. You want to trust the goaltender that's been reliable for you in the past and has shown he can play in the big moments. But Elijah Jones has been able to do the same thing, and sometimes even not more, when Jones has had that slip up. And so right now, heading into this Oakland Golden Grizzlies series, that, look, we're going to have a lot to talk about for that, not just here, but in the broadcast. He's got a lot to work through. And I believe right now Elijah Jones is the best candidate to be in the net just because of what's been going on with Lauren Jones. As you mentioned, 3 straight games with allowing 6+ goals. It's kind of been a nightmare for him, and I think it's time to give the young guy a shot. Yeah, indeed, and we'll see what that is like coming up in the Oakland series. But before we get to that, Devin, I want to take a look at the situation in the MCHC East. Things shook up dramatically this past weekend with the top team coming into the weekend, Saginaw Valley State, out of conference play. So they did not play an in-division contest, and that allowed Saginaw Valley State, with the sweep of Central Michigan, to hop into that top spot. They now sit through 10 games, 8-1-0-1 with 17 points. 3 points ahead of Saginaw Valley State, who is at 7-1, or pardon me, 7-1. And then we've got Michigan. Michigan leapfrogged Central Michigan over the weekend. All Central Michigan needed to do was get a point against Lawrence Tech, and they couldn't do it. And Michigan now has that 3rd spot. Yeah, if only, right? And Michigan's always been a contender against the Chips, and they've always kind of had their number. You know, we talk about how last year they, for the first time in, 5 games, they beat them on their ice in that overtime winner from Brendan Martin, and they came back to Mount Pleasant and pretty much controlled the Chippewas the entire way. The running national runner-ups, really. They went to the national championship against Hope College. For this MCHC East Division, it's been just lights out among the top 3. Saginaw, Lawrence Tech, and then Michigan. You look at where CMU plays into all of this. You know, coming into the year, you were thinking they would contend for the MCHC East #1 seed. You're thinking they could be that #1 seed going into the tournament, but now they're really on the ropes, and they're tied for points against Oakland right now, where this series is so vitally important because if you find yourself below that #4 seed, you find yourself having to play those top seeds. They're going to have to play a Lawrence Tech or maybe a Saginaw or a Michigan in that first round, and you certainly don't want to go home in that first round, especially if it can have an impact on the rankings like it did last year.
Yeah, especially for a team that is coming off of a MCHC semifinal run and a national tournament appearance last year. This upcoming next 2 weeks for Central Michigan is going to be a tough road, and they're going to have to play some pretty darn good hockey. We'll take a break before we get to that Oakland series preview. Devin, thank you so much for coming on. When we come back, we'll take a break from the formalities and commence a game of trivia between our anchors. That's coming up next here on Inside Chippewa Hockey. Welcome back to Inside Chippewa Hockey. Now it's time for our trivia game. Let's meet our contestants. We've got Zoie Sawdy, who joined us earlier, Parker Morrison on here for the first time today, as well as Matt Ryder, who you all have seen earlier. Okay, for this game, folks, I will ask a series of open-ended questions, and the first contestant to tap their hand on the table will get the chance to answer the question. And then after that, if they get it wrong, it'll be open season. Any questions?
Nope. Ready to go.
Folks, the topic for today's round of trivia, CMU hockey.
Oh.
This will be fun. Okay, first question. Who holds the women's team all-time goals record?
Kylie Del Rey.
Wrong.
Oh, wait.
Anastasia.
Nope.
It's a good guess.
Don't even look at me. I have no idea.
Jessica Killingback with 40 goals. Devin, what season?
2018.
2018 season, apparently.
Wow.
So, Jessica Killingback.
That's all time, by the way, though. That's all
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I know. I got it. All time. So the all-time goal leader, Jessica Killingback.
Shout out Jessica.
Nobody gets anything. Here we go. Second question. What year did the D3 team win their first Vezina Cup?
2018.
2018?
Oh,
And so Parker gets that point, and he's ahead 1-0.
told you.
Okay. Question number 3, folks. Who holds Division III's all-time penalty minute record?
Yeah, I'm not getting this one.
If you know the 2018 team, I believe. Anything?
No.
Justice Bigelow with 382 career penalty minutes. Another scratch.
Justice.
So
Seems like
we've only got one question correct here, and that's Parker, so he's still up 1-0. Okay, another D3 question. Who is the D3 team's all-time leader in goals, assists, and points?
Jeez, these D3 questions, man.
I'm assuming there's more.
Hopefully we get a women's in there, huh?
I know, Devin. Okay, there's more women's. Okay.
Okay, good that.
Okay. I can give you a hint if you guys need it.
Yeah.
He was an assistant coach last season for CMU D3 club hockey.
Well, I wasn't here last season, but I should know.
Neither was I.
I'm a freshman. We're looking at that.
Everyone's got a freshman these questions.
A freshman to hockey, yeah.
Set up for me and Sawdy.
a D3 guy, but hey.
Well, we're supposed to have a D3 guy, but yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, any guesses?
We're looking at Matt for this one. We're both freshmen.
Okay.
So,
Matt?
No, I got nothing. I really don't.
Does Dalton Sutherland ring a bell to anybody?
No, it's a weird name, though.
He was number 4, and he was a phenomenal player, part of that 2018 run to the national semifinal, and he makes an appearance in our trivia. And yet again, nobody gets a question. Devin, are you making? I can't tell if you're making these too hard.
Women's hockey question.
There's just too much.
I think it means everyone's got to do their research.
I'm the only one with a point right now.
He's the only one with a point.
This is actually your broadcaster test.
Yeah.
That's good.
We're 4 questions in here, and Parker is the only one with a point, getting the question about when the D3 team won their first Vezina Cup correctly. Okay. I guess another Vezina Cup question. This is a 2-parter here.
Okay.
What team did CMU beat to win the 2018 MCHC Vezina Cup final? And, for a bonus point, what was the final score?
All right, I'll take a stab at it. The Adrian Bulldogs, and are you going to say if it's right or wrong, or should I
give me a score
all right,
first.
give me a score. 5-3.
Incorrect. On both counts.
Oh, gosh. All right.
It is a team, here's a hint,
Yep.
team that Central Michigan does not play this season.
Well,
But the women's team does. I'll give you 10 more seconds.
If I guess the team incorrectly, but I guess the points.
You still get a point.
Okay.
Take
We're
a
gonna
stab.
all right. We're gonna go. I have no idea who you've played this year. I am so sorry. But we're gonna go with Calvin, and we'll do 5-3.
Are you sure you want to go with that score? This is the same one Matt guessed.
I'm so sorry. Love you, buddy. We're gonna. You know what? We'll go 4-3.
there you
Okay.
go.
You're half correct. The final score was 4-3. So you get a point.
You are you're on a roll here at those.
Oh, they've definitely played Calvin this year.
I've never
we
played
haven't.
Calvin. That was men's.
And men's didn't play Calvin.
Northern?
Oh, it's incorrect. Michigan State. So
Yeah.
Parker gets a point there, and we're down. Derek, I have 2 more questions. Can we
So-
just run through 2 of them?
Yes, let's finish it strong.
Okay. And we're down to our final 2 questions. Parker's got a 2-point lead. So, here we go. A women's question.
Yes.
Who holds the women's all-time games played record? And bonus point if you can give me the number of games.
You asked for the women's question.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You should have gotten this.
Careful what you wish for.
Anastasia Hartman. I'll say 320.
You're correct on the name. Devin, I cannot read your chicken scratch.
Games?
Yes.
5-1.
That's 51. Okay, no, you're wrong. That's 51 games. But you do get a point. Anastasia Hartman is the all-time leading Chippewa in terms of games played. She's got 51 all-time games played.
Assistant
So
coach.
Zoe,
Assistant coach on the team.
yes, indeed. Zoe's on the board. She has a chance to tie here. And just for fun, we'll make this last question worth triple. So Matt,
There you go.
I gotta have some pity on him. He hasn't gotten any points here, folks. So, final question. It's a women's question. What year did the women's team make nationals previously?
Ooh. Wow, it's got to be a long time ago. All right. 2013. Oh wait, they were
Table
even at.
slap.
2013.
Incorrect.
Oh, do I get another guess? That mine must. All
I
right.
second table slap.
Oh, okay. Table slap. All right.
Okay.
2014.
Incorrect. Zoe, it comes down to you can win it if you get it correct. If not, Parker wins.
I have a year in my head, but I can't slap again. It's probably wrong. It's a guess, but still.
I can guarantee you it is most likely incorrect.
Oh, it probably is.
2015.
What's with people ignoring the rules?
2015.
Incorrect. Devin, you are mean with writing this question. The women's team has never played.
Devin.
So, Devin wins with the trick question, and also I'm surprised I made it through all of those questions while being able to read his chicken scratch.
just
Congratulations
not
to
cool.
Parker. You've won our trivia game here today.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, we'll take a break here on Inside Chippewa Hockey, but stay with us. We'll be right back with a preview of the next 2 weekends for both teams. You're watching Inside Chippewa Hockey. Welcome back to Inside Chippewa Hockey. As we take a look ahead at the next 2 weeks for both these two teams, I'm joined now once again by Devin, Sarah, and Matt Ryder. Good to have you guys back on. And taking a look ahead, we'll start with the women's D2 team. They play Miami-Ohio February 18th at 7 and the 19th at 11 a.m. Miami comes in 7-6-1. They're 5-5 in the CCWHA. What do you expect out of Miami, and how does Central Michigan beat them in 2 weeks?
Well, Miami started out the season on a hot streak, I believe 5-0, and they lost their last 5 games. And a lot of these teams, they don't play as much games as we do. We've been consistent throughout the season, and so they play 10 games. But I expect the Chippewas to take care of them pretty handily, as we did in the other opponents in MSU and Bowling Green in Northern Michigan. So I feel like we're tested when we play against those top teams, as we did in these last couple of weekends in Sault College and Penn State. But one thing I want to mention for that weekend is it's going to be a big weekend for an event for a suicide prevention. A teammate on the Chippewas, Noelle Simbro, had a friend that passed away, unfortunately, from suicide. So we're going to have an event, and we're raising money for that event. And you can go to the website at cmuwomens.com to contribute. So that'll be something big, and the girls are going to play their hearts out for Noelle Simbro and their family. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, certainly a worthy cause, worth coming out to support those games. February 18th at 7 and the 19th at 11 a.m. If you can't come to those games, you can watch live on CCHN. Turning now for the men's team, Devin. They, again, struggled in their last series against Lawrence Tech, but they play number 17, Oakland, February 3rd at 8:15 and the 4th at 4 p.m. And that is a team that's right around the 500 mark, 12-11. They're 4-4, tied with CMU in the MCHC East. This series was pretty even last year, especially at Martin. What do you expect out of Oakland?
Oh, geez, we got deja vu, right? It seemed like we were in this position before the Adrian series, right? Remember when they lost to Saginaw Valley? They were 2-4-1 heading into that. This is a massive matchup, not just for the rankings. Oakland's number 17. Central was 24. Look, first and foremost, they got to do what they haven't been doing, and that's bring the physicality. Oakland is a very, very similar team to CMU in the terms of their bottom 6 forwards bring the physicality. They really get the puck deep. They really want to hound you with the boards, and I think CMU's got to take that game to Oakland. They've really got to work on getting those battles won, not just in the corners, but in the neutral zone. Playing a lot harder, playing with an upbeat tempo, and like Brendan Martin says, as I mentioned, bring the physicality, because that's something they really lacked against that Lawrence Tech team that just seemed like they could roll 4 lines against them and have fresh bodies. They can't get behind in their own zone. They got to start good early. You and I have talked about how many games this year where they've been down in the first period because they can't get their legs under them in the first 20 minutes. They got to do that first and foremost. Bring the physicality, and for God's sakes, get the puck deep into the zone, because if they get too fancy in the neutral zone and they start turning the puck over, boy, it could be bad.
And you talk about starting early. They are going to have to start early against their opponent the weekend after, playing longtime rival Michigan, who's ranked number 6th in the country. Ironically, the same as their NCAA team down in Ann Arbor, both at number 6 in the nation, February 10th and 11th. Michigan, 14-5-0-1. 3rd in the MCHC East. This is going to be a very, very tough matchup for CMU. How do the Chippewas beat the Wolverines?
Well, first of all, it's got to come from their goaltending. I think it's no mistake that I just previewed how Elijah Jones seems like he could get a chance to start. And if you're Brendan Martin, you got some decision-making to do after this Oakland series. Let's say they go in and they find a way to sweep Oakland. Let's say Elijah Jones gets some playing time. You're going to have good goaltending no matter what, because that Michigan team will run the puck deep on you. They'll shoot 40, 50, 60 plus maybe even on you. So they got to have great goaltending first and foremost. Doesn't matter what those defensive units do. But if they are going to play with their top 6 forwards, they've got to get that top line going. They might have to be switching around some lines. We've seen at times Andrew Shiraki play on that line with Porzonik. We've seen at times Isaac Gibbs play with Bottles. I think you got to try and make some unpredictable moves to kind of get missed matchups against Michigan. Now, that Wolverine team, no matter who you put out there, is going to have goal-scoring capability. But most notably, remember last year when they did beat them at Canton Ice Arena, it was the special teams. And it was really work coming down to that power play, that penalty kill. It's going to have to happen on special teams. They're going to have 2 or 3 power play goals, I think. And like you mentioned earlier, just goaltending, because that's the only way you're going to be able to stop a number 6 team that's red hot like Michigan.
And that overtime win came with Michigan tying up the game with less than 10 seconds to go. So this series has always been tight in the past, and it will continue to be so, or at least the Chippewas hope it will continue to be so here in the upcoming 2 weeks. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of Inside Chippewa Hockey, but there's plenty of hockey coming up in the next 2 weekends right here on CCHN. Until then, I'm Regan Cleves.
I'm Matt Lauder.
And I'm Devin Sarah.
And we're saying so long from Moore Hall Television Studios on the campus of Central Michigan University. Have a good night, everybody.